Welcome to Building the Bakken Radio, heard on the Crude Life Media Network. My name is Jason Spees, and I'm your host today. Thank you, folks, for joining us this week on Building the Bakken Radio, the most trusted energy brand in the Bakken today. As I mentioned a moment ago, Building the Bakken is part of the Crude Life Media Network, and this is not a political program, rather an informational brand. No polarizing talk, just conversations about the facts of the energy industry. Here at the Crude Life Media Network, we generate positive energy. With programs like Building the Bakken, we're able to tell stories about the people, the communities, and the companies within the industry, those who are involved with the evolution of the Bakken oil field and the oil and gas industry. All right, on today's episode of Building the Bakken Radio, we talk with Dan Hedrington from SEH with our weekly Davis Refinery update, and he gives us an update on the emails and the public meeting and all this stuff happening around the Davis Refinery with the 11,000 emails they got. Well, over 10,000 of those emails were identical from a form list from a server, if you will. And he breaks down some of those emails, talks about what's next with those and what's next for the refinery overall. Our weekly Davis Refinery update coming up in just a moment with Dan Hedrington from SEH, one of the players, one of the project managers, one of the people involved from the beginning on the Davis Refinery. Okay, then we travel to Minot, North Dakota, and talk with Shaun Sipma, city alderman in Minot, North Dakota. Some people call them city commissioners, some people call them council members. In Minot, they're called aldermans. And we've got a very interesting story up there about some potential development happening with the Mouse River, the Souris River. Back in 2011, there was a major flood in Minot, which is still causing some rippleistic effects there with some of the flood management that's going on there. Of course, you layer in the Bakken, and it creates all kinds of questions and passions and different ideas. So we talk with Shaun Sipma a little bit later on in the program about Minot, North Dakota, and what's going on there with their flood management projects, some of the ag sector that's coming in to help out energy and technology. Just a fantastic interview a little bit later on in the program with Shaun Sipma. And then we talk with Walter Breidenstein with GasTechno Energy Fuels. He's got a great thing happening right now. Gas gathering is an emerging industry as some of this technology becomes a little bit more streamlined. Walter Briedenstein is one of those players in the industry. In fact, he's living on site out near Kenmere in Stanley, North Dakota, making sure that his gas gathering is going on without a hitch. And he's doing a fantastic job out there, monitoring and making sure that his customers are getting their value, saving money, etc. So a little bit later on in the program, Walter Breidenstein, he's one of the solutions out there right now with the gas problem that we have in North Dakota with the flaring, etc. happening. So a little later on in the program, you're going to want to check out Walter Breidenstein with GasTechno Energy and Fuels. And we'd like to thank the Moody River Band for supplying this week's bumper music. As you're listening right below my voice, that music you're hearing, that's coming from the Moody River Band. Here at the Crude Life Media Network, we've been partnering and working with local live musicians, singer-songwriters, if you will, national acts even, for the past decade. Not only do singer-songwriters add quite a bit to our culture, but they usually have something to say as well. And so they're generally pretty intelligent people, and we love to make a connection with them and help them understand the energy industry even more and allow us to understand the entertainment business a little bit more as well. So it's a great partnership, a great relationship we have with a ton of singer-songwriters across the United States. And this week, we're focusing on the Moody River Band, and they have a new album coming out at the end of March. We're going to keep you folks posted on that as well. And let's listen to a little bit of the Moody River Band as we go to break. And then when we come back, our Davis Refinery update. My name is Jason Spees. This is Building the Bakken Radio, heard on the Crude Life Media Network. Over the past few months, I've told you about how unbelievable hatch coaching is. Don't just take my word for it. Listen to what Christy Huber, president of the United Way of Cast Clay, says about hatch coaching.
When you get to know Eric, and he is so willing to share with you how growing up, his life was impacted by an outstanding mom, and the challenges that he maybe faced. When he's willing to open up and talk about those things, you're immediately drawn in. And that's that vulnerability that I think that he has publicly said, it's okay to be yourself. And it's okay for you to make mistakes along the way.
To find out more about Hatch Coaching or to have Eric Hatch speak at your event or company, visit hatchcoaching.com. That's hatchcoaching.com. Or call 701-212-1572. That's 701-212-1572. Welcome back to Building the Bakken Radio, heard of the Crude Life Media Network. My name is Jason Spees, and I'm your host today. Up next, our Davis Refinery update, our weekly Davis Refinery update, and we talk with Dan Hedrington from SEH.
To what the state of North Dakota typically gets for projects, but I think it's a unique project, and there were a tremendous amount of form letters that were actually sent in. So different groups were asking members of their groups to submit these form letters where that are where they can click on it and then they submit it and it gets submitted on their behalf. So a tremendous amount of the comments were form letters. And I can elaborate on that if you'd like me to, and what kind of numbers those were. But we're in the process of responding to each of those comments and questions, and both the form letter ones and the let's call them unique ones, or the uniquely developed comments. So it's going well.
When I talked to Terry O'Clair a few weeks ago, he mentioned emails, this and that, and then all of a sudden in the news, there's 11,000 emails, and so I called him back, and I was like, we didn't really get into this, and he kind of made it seem like the majority of them were identical, and so they came from the same place, and kind of what I'm hearing from you is that's what you guys are seeing too.
Yeah, actually, you're actually right. 97.7% of them were actually form letters. So I can tell you specifically, we know exactly what they are. Some of the original numbers that we were developing were after the initial run-through of the responses or of the comments, and now we've had an opportunity to go through them, and some had multiple pages that came in as separate emails, but they were actually part of the same email, or some of them were, where they were hit multiple times, where they hit enter to submit them online. What we received was a total of 10,751 comments, so about 10,750. Out of that, 250 of them were unique. So 10,500 of them were form letters. They were exactly the same from one form or another, from different groups that were just submitting these form letters. And so 250 of them were unique. And and going through this process, it is interesting to see how this happens. So, as an example, one of the groups that we received the majority of the form letters for, it was something like less than 1% of their members actually submitted the form letter, but still, it was a lot of form letters that came in in regards to this project. So, even though that group didn't respond, really well, the overall number, because they're so big, looks really big on our part, where we see these form letters. So yeah, we saw 10,500 of them were form letters, 250 of them were unique.
To listen to the full-length interview with Dan Hedrington from SEH, or to listen to other Building the Bakken features, visit thecrudelife.com. That's thecrudelife.com. Building the Bakken Radio is part of the Crude Life Media Network. Check us out on Facebook and Twitter. All of our social media links are available at thecrudelife.com. My name is Jason Spees, and this is Building the Bakken Radio, heard on the Crude Life Media Network. The music on today's program is written and performed by the Moody River Band. The Moody River Band has a new album hitting the downloadable streets on April 1st. For more information on the Moody River Band, their links, and their music, visit thecrudelife.com. That's thecrudelife.com, and click on the Musicians tab. This is the Moody River Band.
One of these days I will find you.
Jason Spees, the most trusted voice in the Bakken.
Let's bring in Jason Spees, who is a multimedia journalist in North Dakota. Jason, what's your thought on this?
My dad always listens to Jason Spees.
No one does an interview like Jason Spees.
Jason Spees is the most trusted voice in the Bakken.
Love listening to Jason Spees on the radio, and if I miss him there, I catch him online.
I don't know what justifies being placed in history books, Jason, but in my book, it's in there. This is a good thing.
Is your boss watching this? You need a raise.
Welcome back to Building the Bakken Radio, heard on the Crude Life Media Network. My name is Jason Spiess, and I'm your host today. Up next, we talk with Shaun Sipma, City Alderman from Minot, North Dakota.
Hi, good morning. Shaun Sipma, I'm the Minot City Alderman.
Thank you very much for joining us here on the Crude Life Media Network, and this is kind of a dual-purpose interview. We're going to be doing, obviously, for the radio, the social media audience, etc., but also for a magazine, an upcoming magazine article showcasing the Mouse River project that's happening in Minot, North Dakota. Shaun Sipma is our guest, City Alderman, Minot, North Dakota, and appreciate you coming on with us here today.
Absolutely. It's always appreciated when I get an opportunity to talk about some of the I think very profound impact projects that we've got going on here in north central North Dakota.
You know, I was somewhat involved with the Souris River, the Minot Mouse River up there, and during the flood, I was at KFGO actually at the time, and because of our flood fighting experience, we ended up helping out the Clear Channel radio stations, doing a media partnership with Minot and Bismarck, and kind of were the voices and the behind the scenes type of thing. So I was very, very familiar with what happened up there. So I'm very excited about this because now I get to find out what happens afterwards. So we had the flood up there. Let's start from there and then bring us to today. So kind of what's transpired to bring us to this Mouse River project from when the flood happened?
Absolutely. It's actually been a very, very lengthy process, and anyone who followed even Grand Forks after the 97 flood, I think can at least appreciate that it's more than just drawing up a plan and trying to find some money. There is a significant amount of work that goes into just coming to the plan itself. There was, following the flood, of course, the immediate acknowledgement that something had to be done in terms of an enhanced flood control project. We had a channelization project that stemmed from the 69 flood that resulted in some channelization of the river through the city of Minot and even some rural outlying areas, and then several reservoirs being built in Canada, as well as the refurbishment of the Lake Darling Dam north of Minot. A series of meetings were held following the flood, and of course a lot of as you can imagine, some raw emotion. I was at that time a television news anchor. My home was one of them that was also destroyed in the flood. So this is a process that I've followed from not only the build-up to the flood, but every step of the process after. And after a whole series of ideas were put forth on what possible project we should move forward on, the one that is outlined in front of all of us is the one that was chosen through a series of public meetings. Again, very high emotions to a lot of those, because at the end of those, it became clear that a lot of homes were going to be bought out. And that, you know, in and of itself is a very expensive and time-consuming process, because just like within Grand Forks, there's a lot of homes that were built around the river from the very beginning of our city. It seemed to be one of the nicer, quiet areas of town, and as the river winds its way through the city of Minot, houses are built all the way along. And looking at the basin-wide project, we're looking at a $1.1 billion plan. It's not just the city of Minot. It also encapsulates Burlington. It also includes Sawyer and Velva and a lot of the subdivisions. So that was the overall scope, that it was going to be a basin-wide project and not just the city. And that was one of the fundamental aspects that I think got traction right away, knowing that we weren't going to be leaving people or communities behind on this. Now, fast forward a few more years, we've been purchasing homes along the river itself through the tract of the Enhanced Flood Protection Project, many hundreds of millions of dollars, and taking people that had rebuilt homes, having to buy them out, and then getting people out of the valley. And in some sense, that's mitigation itself in terms of getting people further away from future potential disasters. And then also, the voluntary and involuntary process, as you can imagine, takes time right there. So we are just to the point where we are ready to break ground on stages 1 through 4 coming up here in about 2 weeks. It is phases 1 through 4, $325 million in total cost. About $193 million of that's going to be coming from the state. Our local cost share, about $131.8 million. And the hard part about all of this is, and the significant difference between the Grand Forks Flood Control Project and Minot, is right now we don't have, in terms of the actual flood control project, we don't have any federal dollars.
My understanding is the federal dollars were just, buyouts and that sort of thing, but there doesn't seem to be much promise or much outlook of any future, and that's kind of that's kind of what you just said there, I guess. Is that true?
Absolutely. We've been fortunate with some FEMA money for acquisitions. Of course, FEMA has those different programs and CDBG dollars that have come in for the acquisition process. Have to be careful with some of those programs, because if it is, depending on which money you use, if it's FEMA money for some of those programs, nothing can ever be built on there. So that's been one of those pieces that we've had to navigate through very carefully. In terms of the acquisitions, yes, some federal dollars have come in that way. But of course, there's local cost share with a lot of that. So there's been a lot of sales tax dollars locally that have been utilized to pick up that side of the funding. And then, just on the actual construction of it, we are working hard to get completion with the Corps of Engineers, a study on what we call the buy-in program for them with Stage 4 itself, what we call the Maple Diversion, to see if we can get them to partner with some cost sharing there. Outside of that, we have the indication from Washington and from a lot of other people that the federal government is just not going to be a partner in this financially. So that leaves a very, very, very heavy burden on the local folks to try to get this done, not only in the city of Minot, but basin-wide as well.
You mentioned you were in the media world. You have a background in the media, so I think you'll understand this question, and I don't mean it to be political, but anytime that you're involved with water, you're bringing in a diversity of opinions, from the Army Corps of Engineers to the DNR to the locals to landowners. So you're just bringing in a diversity of opinions and things that are very passionate when it comes to water. So without, getting political, I wanted to say that because this is not a political topic here, but what this is that it can get ugly pretty quick, or it can get very heated very quick. How has it been working with the different groups involved here who all have legitimate concerns when it comes to working with water?
Well, we recognize that from the very get-go, and learning from the past. I had mentioned the 69 flood and some of the challenges that they faced stemming from that project, and that's why we recognized immediately that this was going to be a basin-wide project, that we had to get the Army Corps of Engineers on board to be able to certify this project, to be able to sign off on these projects. We also lobbied with Senator John Hoven, Congressman Kramer, and even Senator Heitkamp to help facilitate and work with us and the Army Corps of Engineers to get these studies done so that we can break ground, which, that study took 3 years, which they say normally takes 5 or many more. So we've been fortunate in that realm. As far as a lot of the other folks, it's, I guess when we talk about the heightened emotion from the individuals, that's going to be just on the individual acquisitions themselves. For the most part, we've been working downstream with a lot of the folks that have long since had that idea that if you build a wider flood control system, that the water moves through much more quickly, creates a bigger problem downstream.
Mr. Shaun Sipma, hold that thought. We're going to rejoin our conversation with Shaun Sipma, City Alderman from Minot, North Dakota. My name is Jason Spees, and you're listening to Building the Bakken Radio, heard on the Crude Life Media Network.
They come in new tunes. I got this blue hands, brown shoe, old papers telling new, witches lying around on broken broom, waiting around for a full moon. Gonna hop on that train, head for the caboose. The time to let it go, time to cut it all loose. Sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. A blue
The music on today's program is written and performed by the Moody River Band. The Moody River Band has a new album hitting the downloadable streets on April 1st. For more information on the Moody River Band, their links, and their music, visit thecrudelife.com. That's thecrudelife.com and click on the Musicians tab. This is the Moody River Band. Over the past few months, I've told you about how unbelievable hatch coaching is. Well, don't just take my word for it. Listen to what Greg Tavine of Emerging Prairies has to say about hatch coaching.
Yeah, I mean, this guy gets people laughing. He gets people thinking. He's somebody that challenges and inspires. And what I think is so beautiful about Eric is he's real. I think the number one thing that I look for in speakers when we bring them into our platforms is that they're that person 365 days a year. Eric is not just a speaker on a stage. That's who he is at the grocery store. That's who he is when he's at the mall. But Eric is somebody that lives his values each and every day. And I think we can all respect that.
To find out more about Hatch Coaching or to have Eric Hatch speak at your event or company, visit hatchcoaching.com. That's hatchcoaching.com. Or call 701-212-1572. That's 701-212-1572.
Meridian Energy Group of Belfield, North Dakota is building the most technologically advanced oil refinery on the planet, the Davis Refinery, a project designed to achieve emission control levels the industry has never seen before. The Davis Refinery, working for North Dakota. MeridianEnergyGroupInc.com.
Mark your calendars for June 15th. That's the Bakken Barbecue. Mark your calendars today, June 15th, the Bakken Barbecue coming to Dickinson, North Dakota. Welcome back to Building the Bakken Radio, heard on the Crude Life Media Network. My name is Jason Spees, and I'm your host today. Up next, we continue our conversation with Shaun Sipma, City Alderman from Minot, North Dakota.
One fortunate aspect that we learned from the 2011 flood was that the Mouse River itself, once it breaches its own riverbanks, and once it gets to a certain CFS, cubic feet per second flow, is that it becomes much more efficient within itself. So the idea that the water would be pushed through faster, it's going to create problems downstream, was really kind of disproved that once it hits about that 10 to 11,000 CFS, it's going to do what it's going to do regardless. So that helped, I think, right, wrong, or otherwise, it helped create a picture based on fact that has been proven by an unfortunate disaster in 11, but also working with them through the different programs. I know Ward County Emergency Management has been diligent on working with people out in the outer lying areas, and then it's just partnering with all aspects. I know the Souris River Joint Board has done a fantastic job of continuing the conversation with not only people in Minot, but a lot of the other communities and subdivisions. So we've had a very collaborative effort on this from the get-go, and that's been the main reason why we're now looking here. 2018, we're going to be 7 years, almost 7 years from the flood being able to break ground and not having lawsuits and other aspects that otherwise could be very much a hindrance on getting this project moving forward.
I'm kind of looking at Minot from the 5,000-foot view. Obviously, flood happened in Grand Forks. I was part of the Fargo flood fight. That the emotional wear and tear on individuals, let alone the financial. And Fargo didn't flood; they were just fighting it. Versus Grand Forks, which they lost that fight and then had to rebuild. So North Dakota's experienced really the both sides, and then of course Minot and Bismarck, that came out of nowhere, literally. I mean, like that just out of nowhere. So when we look at these, and when I look at Minot, the Bakken comes to mind right away. And I'll even throw in United Pulse. They're looking at doing quite a bit of building there as well. So there's an agricultural motivation when it comes to Minot. There's a security motivation with the Air Force Base, with North Dakota being one of the UAS test sites, but then also the Bakken. You got companies like Hess, and these aren't small companies that have invested in Minot for a number of years here. With that preface in terms of the ag, the security, and the energy, and then also with Minot's positioning as even as a hub city, if you will, talk to me a little bit about how much this investment has to do with what the investment looks to be where Minot is going.
Absolutely. I mean, the key reason all comes down to the why. It's not just about building levees and walls. It's about providing safety, security, and then the economics as well. That's a tremendous outline to exactly why we are working so hard to get this done. The safety is that in of itself, just the people themselves. If you look at Minot, we are a city that is built on South Hill, in the valley, and North Hill. In 2011, we were a city divided because the river cuts right through the heart of the city. That also, separated our emergency services. And when we talk about the economics, we had essentially one or two, as we were able to shore up and make sure Broadway was safe, main arteries that connected basically North and South Hill. And that takes a tremendous toll economically if you can't even transport goods and services. Now, if we want to throw in the railroads, Minot Air Force Base, all of it, it is tied intricately together in terms of making sure that a disaster like this doesn't impact a regional hub like Minot, a Bakken hub like Minot. Again, the project itself is designed to basically close off the river during high flow events. Yes, the railroads, two Class 1 railroads running through town, would be shut down for a little while because they are built right down in the valley, but not in any way that it was in 2011. And just on the economic side of the point too, we haven't even touched on what flood insurance would mean throughout the city of Minot, throughout the outer line basin itself. We're talking about map changes coming up that we're going to start seeing increases to flood insurance for anyone in the valley, and then even in drainage areas that feed into the Mouse River, something that we as a region haven't seen before. And without these types of projects getting completed in the next decade or 2 decades, we would be looking at astronomical amounts in flood insurance all flowing out of the region into Washington. And if you take a look at what that would do to the economics, the future stability of anything that would be in the valley or near the valley, that changes that picture entirely for perpetuity. So there's so many different facets that all play into making sure that this is done right, and it's done efficiently so that we don't put any of them into jeopardy for the future of the region.
The flood insurance, that's a real thing too. I think most people, I had a piece of property that had, I want to say it was a couple acres, and less than 10% of it was in the floodplain, and they wanted to assess the whole thing. And it was, when I saw the increase of the flood insurance, I thought it was a joke. I literally thought it was a joke. It was that much of a sticker shock to where I don't have that property anymore because of that reason. I mean, you're right. I mean, that I never thought of the savings that the state would have just from saving people the money of sending it to flood insurance. You're totally right on that.
And that's also, I mean, if we're talking about people spending $2,000, $5,000, or even $10,000, and that's a sticker shock price tag right there. But there are folks that live in floodplains just outside of the city that are already paying $2,000 to $3,000 a year for flood insurance. And we're going to see those going up as those new maps change. Well, think about it. That's all money that is leaving the region with no benefit to the local Commerce Department at all. So that's less disposable income that they would have to spend locally, which is also, by the way, our funding mechanism on how we're paying for our flood control as it is. So that facet alone would have a significant impact of millions of dollars going out of the state in flood insurance, and then on top of it, the housing market. To give you an idea right now, I've just done even a drive around in a 5-block radius of my house. I've got over 20 homes for sale. I live down in the heart of the valley. I've got over 20 homes for sale right now that have been for sale for quite a while, and there's not much moving down there because of the concern over what flood insurance is going to do. Now, that's, I don't think, entirely indicative of the long term on what's going to happen to our housing market, because a lot of people don't quite understand that we are working on stage 1 through 4 starting here in a couple of weeks. It's going to take us, anywhere from 6 to 7 years, hopefully no more than 8, to get through that point.
To listen to the full-length interview with Shaun Sipma, City Alderman from Minot, North Dakota, or to listen to other Building the Bakken features, visit thecrudelife.com. That's thecrudelife.com. Building the Bakken Radio is part of the Crude Life Media Network. Check us out on Facebook and Twitter. All of those social media links are available at thecrudelife.com. That's thecrudelife.com. My name is Jason Spees, and this is Building the Bakken Radio, heard on the Crude Life Media Network. Music on today's program is written and performed by the Moody River Band. The Moody River Band has a new album hitting the downloadable streets on April 1st. For more information on the Moody River Band, their links, and their music, visit thecrudelife.com. That's thecrudelife.com, and click on the Musicians tab. This is the Moody River Band. Over the past few months, I've told you about how unbelievable hatch coaching is. Don't just take my word for it. Listen to what Christy Huber, president of the United Way of Cast Clay, says about hatch coaching.
One of our programs was where we asked Eric Hatch to come in and speak to this group, and it ended up being a group of about 90 emerging leaders, and talk to them about leadership lessons. And Eric just did a phenomenal job of reaching out and talking about leadership from a very personal perspective. He is one of our best leaders in the community, talking about being vulnerable and what that has meant to him in his leadership journey.
To find out more about Hatch Coaching or to have Eric Hatch speak at your event or company, visit hatchcoaching.com. That's hatchcoaching.com. Or call 701-212-1572. That's 701-212-1572.
Jason Spees, the most trusted voice in the Bakken.
Let's bring in Jason Spees, who is a multimedia journalist in North Dakota. Jason, what's your thought on this?
My dad always listens to Jason Spees.
No one does an interview like Jason Spees.
Jason Spees is the most trusted voice in the Bakken.
Love listening to Jason Spees on the radio, and if I miss him there, I catch him online.
I don't know what justifies being placed in history books, Jason, but in my book, it's in there. This is a good thing.
Is your boss
Meridian
watching
Energy
this?
Group
You need a
Belfield,
raise.
North Dakota is building the most technologically advanced oil refinery on the planet, the Davis Refinery. A project designed to achieve emission control levels the industry has never seen before. The Davis Refinery, working for North Dakota. MeridianEnergyGroupInc.com.
Welcome back to Building the Bakken Radio, heard of the Crude Life Media Network. My name is Jason Spees, and I'm your host today. Up next, Walter Breidenstein with GasTechno Energy and Fuels. Is it the cost has got down? Is it just there's more familiarity with it? What's the reason behind more of this on-site NGL technology becoming a solution for these oil companies?
I think the big issue up here is that oil companies don't typically like to venture into new technologies. And so G2 has been the pioneer largely up here. Others have also come and gone, but G2 is a first-class operation, and they've been able to demonstrate successfully to a number of their clients and operators that they can do it. And so that's given a positive feedback to the industry that, processing on site can be done. Preferably, all the oil companies would rather just sell pipeline gas. And it's simple. Once they tie in, they've got access to the pipeline. They don't have to worry about on-site processing and the additional equipment and the issues that go along with on-site processing. However, in the last, say, 12 months, as more drilling has come into play and the well pads are getting larger, 3, 4, 5, 8, 10 wells per pad, as they look at these multiple well pads, you have a significant volume of associated gas that comes with the oil, and the pipelines are full. So even if you tie into a pipeline, the chance of being able to sell your gas through the pipeline is a challenge. And so these operators, even though they prefer to have pipeline access, because of the overwhelming volume of gas that's being put into these pipelines, you might find wells that actually, in certain areas in the reservation and so forth, they will sell gas 25% of the time and flare 75% of the time, even with pipeline access. So because the state is calling for $11 billion of new infrastructure development to meet the flaring restrictions in October, November, they're going to limit, they want to see 88% utilization of the gas as opposed to 85% utilization, which they have right now in place as a mandate. That becomes very, very difficult. That 3% really is going to be a challenge to meet. But the politicians and the environmentalists and class action lawyers and everybody are watching, obviously carefully, to see that the state continues to try to come up with solutions. And so you see NDIC calling for investment into North Dakota, this $11 billion worth of investment. And we can be part of that solution. You don't have to go big, giant anymore, so to speak. We can go small and try. We're not going to make the same impact that they would on a large scale with the pipelines and the big gas plants and the distribution facilities, but we can make a positive impact by offering on-site processing, and that is starting to become an option more and more and more, because they have to meet these requirements. Unless the state reverses their stance on flaring and decide to not require 88% utilization this October, November, these oil companies are going to be faced with having to use us technology guys more and more. We're going to have more interest, and so I think the industry is being driven by flaring regulation. North Dakota is a leader in the world in requiring operators to utilize the gas. There is a significant amount of gas being flared in Texas, and they don't like to talk about it. I get emails from guys in Texas going, you would be surprised at how much flaring we're doing down here, and regulators are letting them get away with it.
To listen to the full-length interview with Walter Breidenstein with GasTechno Energy and Fuels, or to listen to other Building the Bakken features, visit thecrudelife.com. That's thecrudelife.com. My name is Jason Spiess, and this is Building the Bakken Radio, heard on the Crude Life Media Network.
I got this blue hats, brown shoes, my old papers telling new news, witches flying around on broken brooms.
The music on today's program is written and performed by the Moody River Band. The Moody River Band has a new album hitting the downloadable streets on April 1st. For more information on the Moody River Band, their links, and their music, visit thecrudelife.com. That's thecrudelife.com and click on the Musicians tab. This is the Moody River Band.
Head for the caboose, the time to let it go, time to cut it all loose. Sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. A blue hat's in these brown shoes. I got these blue hats, brown shoes. Old papers telling new news. Witches flying around on broken room, waiting around for full moon.
And that concludes this week's episode of Building the Bakken Radio. Building the Bakken will be back next week at this time on this radio station. For a full list of our media affiliates, visit buildingthebakken.com. That's buildingthebakken.com. And from the staff at Building the Bakken, my name is Jason Spees. We're asking you to be safe, be happy, and make it a great day. Thank you, folks, for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Waiting around for full moon. Blue hats, brown shoes, old papers telling new news. Witches flying around on broken brooms, waiting around for full moon.
Seems like no matter who I talk to in the world of business these days, people are telling me about the success of Hatch coaching. Listen to what Jeff Schatz, superintendent of the Fargo Public Schools, has to say about Eric Hatch and Hatch coaching.
I just thought that his story about how he talks about the struggles that he and his family went through and having children, and how, you know, everybody has a hot mess, and how do you deal with that in life. And I just thought that really resonates well with, you know, folks. And so I thought that would be a great message for everybody to hear. Well, then beyond that, I've also seen Eric do some of the other things that he does with emceeing and leading other types of things that he does. He does coaching, I know, with students, where the principals have hired him to come in and do that. So I just extended that opportunity for him to be the MC too. He was very well received.
For more information, call 701-212-1572 or visit coachingwithhatch.com. That's coachingwithhatch.com.
Jason Spees, the most trusted voice in the Bakken.
Let's bring in Jason Spees, who is a multimedia journalist in North Dakota. Jason, what's your thought on this?
My dad always listens to Jason Spees.
No one does an interview like Jason Spees.
Jason Spees is the most trusted voice in the Bakken.
Love listening to Jason Spees on the radio, and if I miss him there, I catch him online.
You know, I don't know what justifies being placed in history books, Jason, but in my book, it's in there. This is a good thing.
Is your boss watching this? You need a raise.
Meridian Energy Group of Belfield, North Dakota is building the most technologically advanced oil refinery on the planet, the Davis Refinery, a project designed to achieve emission control levels the industry has never seen before. The Davis Refinery, working for North Dakota. MeridianEnergyGroupInc.com.
June 15th, save the date. That's June 15th, the Bakken Barbecue in Dickinson, North Dakota. That's June 15th. Be sure to save the date today, and we'll see you June 15th at the Bakken Barbecue in Dickinson, North Dakota.